Well, it's 6:30. I'll call this meeting to order on July 7th, 2026. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Cheryl, would you go ahead and do roll call then?
Fortini,
Here.
Burkett,
Here.
Fryhofer. Landreth,
Here.
Rymey.
Remy.
Remy? I do that every time.
I'd like to welcome the two new members that we have. We finally have 5 commissioners. It's been quite a while, but welcome Rich and Bruce. Appreciate you being here. First item of business is approval of the agenda. I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Second. I make a motion to approve the minutes for the agenda.
Or the agenda, it's the agenda first.
The agenda. I make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Proceed to vote.
Landreth,
Yes.
Fortini,
Aye.
Burkett,
Yes.
Fryhofer,
Yes.
Remy.
Yes. Next item is approval of the minutes from the May 5th meeting. Those that weren't here, just vote present. But any comments and any changes or anything, or? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes from May 5th.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from last meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion or any changes? Let's proceed to vote then.
Fryhofer,
Yes.
Burkett,
Present.
Landreth,
Present.
Fortini,
Aye.
Remy.
Yes. First item of business, will be any public participation. Speakers would limit to 5 minutes, or 3 minutes, I mean. Anybody need to, on behalf of anything that's not currently on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing for resolution number 5, series 2026, land use code revisions. And Nancy, would you enlighten us on this, please? Is your microphone on? Okay. There, that's better.
I guess I could go up here.
Yeah, there you go, that's better.
I feel like I'm on my tiptoes. So in front of you tonight, and I realize some of you are new, so if I go over this in too detail, stop me, or not enough, feel free to stop and ask questions at any point. You probably know that last year we adopted a brand new land use code, redid the whole thing, and since that time, as it's used by staff, obviously you find things that didn't work quite so well. In addition to that, in the last year, the state passed some new laws that actually mandate some changes to the land use code. So at this point, I've got a mixture for you of some changes that are proposed really by staff working with the new code, and then also ones that were required by the state to be changed, although there was some discretion on how we did that. So what I'm going to try and do is quickly go over what the changes are. We have red lines so you can actually see how it fits into the code, but I think I'll first just go over in words kind of describing what they are, And after that, we can page through all the changes of the code if that works for you. We did review all these changes with the code committee in March. We had some delays and vacations and things, so we're here before you tonight. Should you recommend this to go on, it will go to City Council next for a first and second reading because it's an ordinance. So those are scheduled for tentatively for July 28th and August something. 11th? Okay. Thanks. So the first changes were due to actually a vote of the people of Colorado where natural medicine became legalized in the state. The city council back last year adopted changes to the city code that allowed some what they call natural medicine, I have it right, natural medicine businesses of different types. So we needed to put this into the land use code as a land use that is considered permitted or conditional. It's in city code now, but city code allowed that natural medicine centers to be in the central business district and commercial zones and the I zone, but they did not speak to whether they were allowed uses or conditional uses. The code committee reviewed that, recommended that the centers be a conditional use in the CBD, in the central business district and the commercial zone, and a permitted use in the industrial zone. If you don't know this, the industrial zone is limited really to the industrial park out towards the north end of town. So the centers is where people would, it's like a doctor's office where they would receive the medicine. The other uses would be cultivation, manufacturing and testing. We're suggesting that those become conditional in the commercial zone and permitted in the industrial zone. Cultivation, manufacturing, testing, we didn't feel were appropriate at all in the central business district, so they're left out of that. They're not allowed. Just sort of as a side note, the hospital is zoned as a PUD right now. That's probably another location. There's some doctor's offices and such out there where it may be reasonable to allow natural medicine centers. Not really a code issue, however, because there's two ways to look at that. If someone came in and said, I want to do a center in the hospital PUD, it could be looked at as an interpretation of that PUD. Would it be allowed? Or you could require that the PUD be revised to allow natural medicine uses in there.
And would you highlight what PUD stands for?
Planned unit development. So it's a custom written zone. Most of the city is in traditional zones, commercial, residential, industrial, etc. But a few places in the city, the hospital, and then right near the hospital, there's a county facilities PUD where the sheriff's office and that, those uses are. So you would establish usually a larger area of land where it doesn't fit cleanly into any of the existing districts, and you custom write that zone district for the uses proposed, limited to that. So I think those are the only two we have in the city. Where? Oh yeah, Brandon's Gate was also done as a PUD because if you know, there's some multifamily in there and single family, so mixing of different uses is very, or densities is very traditional to use as a plan unit development. Okay, so natural medicine needs to show up in the code. The next set of changes relate to a change in state statute regarding turf. And let me just say the basics of this was an idea to limit bluegrass, basically water-thirsty turf, and the use of that in cities and towns and counties. There's a bunch of limits on when you can put turf in, and a lot of complicated definitions that we had to add. And essentially, the changes are going to show up in our landscaping regulations, where we won't allow the water-thirsty turf. There's a few other places where we had to move them in. They also, when they made the changes in statute to not allow bluegrass, except for things like soccer fields and football fields and where you really need turf. They also decided to disallow artificial turf, and that we believe was due to climate warming issues of artificial turf. So they want to make sure people didn't just rip out lawns and with turf and put in artificial turf. So there's a number of changes throughout our code to recognize those changes in statute. Wildfire resiliency codes. So the city adopted the Colorado Wildfire Resiliency Code several months ago. It does affect about, a third of the city, maybe a little bit less, at the northern, on the limits, because the idea of this is which portions of the city would be most affected by a wildfire. Again, most of these changes are related to building materials, and the changes were made to the building code. Of course, that's not in necessarily the land use code, but we did find 2 places in the land use code that we thought needed to be changed to address that. Number 1 was in the landscaping portions and requirements. We wanted to make sure that anywhere where the land use code requires landscaping, but the wildfire resiliency code wouldn't allow landscaping, like buffering plants along building foundations. If that's not allowed by the wildfire resiliency code, we want to make sure that we didn't require it with the landscape code. So basically, we wrote an exemption in there and said, hey, if you can't put those in, the plant materials in because of wildfire hazard, don't. And wildfire trumps landscaping. So hopefully we've addressed that in that way. The other thing is that fence materials in that wildfire resiliency code, it won't allow, say, a wooden fence up against a building if you're, even your single family home, if you're in the area that's affected. So we wanted to make sure that that was clear, that we weren't contradicting it by allowing the fencing in one area and not in the other. So again, there's a simple reference to wildfire resiliency rules. Sidewalks. This is one where there's a lot of debate going on, and we're looking for a recommendation from you guys specifically. The code committee really couldn't settle on the right answer. But when the new code was written, there's provisions. Let me step back. So much of the city has 3-foot wide sidewalks in residential areas. Those do not meet ADA regulations, okay? A 5-foot is minimum for ADA, but they're older parts of town and the sidewalks are there. When we wrote the land use code, we talked about filling in the gaps. So say you develop and there's 3-foot sidewalks on either side of you, what do you have to do? The land use code at that time debated and said, well, if it's a small section of sidewalk in front of your property, you got three on either side, it would be kind of silly to go to 5, and maybe difficult to punch it out to 5 where you have 3. So the land use code was rewritten to allow you to do the non-compliant 3-foot sidewalks to fill in gaps. Everywhere else where there's not already 3 foot on either side, you would put in the 5 foot as required. We then have a new public works director who expressed concern with allowing substandard new sidewalks, rightfully so, to be constructed. He expressed concerns with liabilities and future costs to the city should they have to be torn out and replaced. He then suggested that we remove that allowance to do the 3 foots when the adjacent walkways are 3 foot. The code committee had a lot of concern with that. Like I said, you know, what do? You got 3 foot and then 5 foot and then back to 3 foot, pretty awkward. So they were somewhat uncertain. I would like for you folks to tell us, keep the 3 foot in there, make the changes, or don't make the changes, leave it the way it is, as suggested, or require ADA compliant sidewalks whenever someone puts it in, and we'll have to figure out how to make the transitions. Another pretty simple revision suggested by the new public works director was that any new subdivisions coming in throw an extra empty conduit in when they've got the trenches open, just in case. Some subdividers will do that anyway, and it's proven to be very useful when a new fiber company comes in or something like that. So it's really very limited cost, and it provides a great benefit in the future should that need arise. Okay, carport design standards. Going through the new code, we did remove most design standards. The only remaining standard is for carports, which requires that carports be constructed in a manner that appears as part of the original construction of home, and that the materials used be compatible with materials used on the home. These provisions are somewhat hard to define and administer, and in the past have been generally ignored with carport construction. A lot of people use those metal carports. Obviously, they don't match a single-family home. Given that it's been ignored in the past and it's the only design standard left, staff's suggesting you remove that and allow people to do what they're doing recently anyway. So that's change would remove that requirement. Historic preservation, Robert was actually sat in on a lot of that. There was a bunch of changes that were made, all suggested by the Historic Preservation Committee. I can go over all those, but most of them are pretty much wording changes, not really anything to change how we do things. Next change, parking lot lighting. This one we noted when new lighting was being proposed for the south of town softball fields. The consultant or the designer came up and said, whoa, if I meet your code, this thing's gonna be really, really bright. We kind of looked back and forth and looked up some new standards. The new code, when it was done, changed the parking lot requirement for parking lots from 3-foot candles to 5 lumens. We do not know why they made that change, but it was noted that 5 lumens is a really excessive amount of lighting. I pulled up the International Electric, I don't remember what IESNA means at this point, but they have recommendations. And so if you look at that 5-foot candles, that is the top, and it's a high security amount of lighting. So we really had to, looking at that, agree that that was pretty excessive for a parking lot. Probably don't want that in all our parking lots in the town or in the city. So we're suggesting that that get moved down to a minimum of 1 foot candle, which is comparable to that residential and standard commercial recommended levels. It would allow people or commercial to go higher than that, but the minimum of 1 seems to be much more reasonable for this community, where some people are much more concerned about dark skies than we are about super bright security lighting. Nobody's asking questions, so I'm going to keep going. Setback exceptions. We did note that the new code did not include some very common exclusions and exceptions to setback requirements. So we staff went through and suggested adding the following, which are permitted setback exceptions, including fences, walls that meet all requirements of the code, and retaining walls meeting all requirements of the code. And then another permitted setback encroachments. So you can bump out a little bit, things like awnings and canopies, bay windows, chimneys, decks, porches, patios. Eaves, I think eaves was where we first noted the problem. And then stairways and fire escapes. Those amounts of encroachment, we worked with the building director to make sure it met building code and common practices.
Should the uncovered decks and patios be allowed all the way to the property line?
A patio? Sure.
Deck, an uncovered deck?
Well, that's the suggestion. You could pull them back if you wished. Certainly patios, I would think.
I just think there could be a problem. What about drainage, privacy, fire access, conflict with the neighbors? I think that's one thing that I don't think is a good idea, allowing a deck all the way to the property line.
Okay. And these are like a platform deck, right, with drainage and privacy. We can make note of that. Okay, so does everyone get that? Do you want me to walk through the red lines to show you how we put that into code? Or is that overkill?
Nancy, I do have a question on your sidewalk that you were talking about.
Yes.
Is it like there's a 3 foot wide and then it going linear, it hits a 5 foot wide and then maybe goes back to 3 foot wide? Is that the situation?
No, typically the situation is 3 foot wide, nothing. Lots not developed. 3 foot wide. And the question is, should we put 5 foot to fill the gap, which is ADA?
I have a along those lines for our city attorney. If we allow the 3 foot, does that create an ADA liability? If we don't require the 5 foot sidewalks?
Well, the ADA has some flexibility in it. It doesn't require wholesale replacement of the non-compliant sidewalks. So that, our 3 foot, especially in the older neighborhoods, you don't have to replace existing sidewalks. If you're building new sidewalks, they use kind of nebulous terms like, to the extent feasible, you're supposed to make the new construction compliant. I guess my thought would be that making it 5 foot, unless it's only 6 feet of sidewalk, you probably should make it 5 feet. If it's, especially if it's completely new construction, you're not replacing an old sidewalk. But if, you know, if there are other physical constraints like tree roots that would prevent you from installing the 5 foot unless you cut the tree down and pulled the roots out of the ground, you don't have to do that. But generally, they talk about each jurisdiction having a kind of a compliance plan for transportation, and that would include sidewalks and curb cuts and ramps and all that sort of thing. And again, you don't have to replace the existing sidewalks, but if you build new, and obviously new development, you would have to require the 5 foot. I think it's, you know, it's questionable whether there would be any liability if it's only the sidewalk in front of one house that's being replaced. Or being built for the first time, for that matter, because it may create, you know, the whole premise is that it's supposed to facilitate access, and so if you have 3 foot that, you know, I guess if you didn't put like an apron to lessen the change from the 5 foot to the 3 foot, you don't want them sliding their wheelchair off the 3 foot and not being able to get back on because there's a sidewalk in front of them. And so I think you kind of would have to look at some of that and see whether it's feasible to increase to the 5 foot so that you're in compliance. But I think generally, I would suggest we err on the side of complying, even when it maybe seems a little awkward. But I would think if you're gonna go from 3 foot to 5 foot, you may wanna smooth out the 90-degree angle so that somebody doesn't go off the 3 foot and hit the curb, you know, or hit the new sidewalk. But that, you know, I think the ADA does give you some flexibility, so I think that's where.
So would that be an administrative issue with the city department deciding whether or not it's feasible or not, and that they should go with 5 foot?
Yeah, I mean, to the extent possible, I recommend including some kind of guidelines in the code so that, you know, I think the less discretion you give them, the better in terms of whether it complies, because you don't want Jason to be the one that gets arrested for not complying with the ADA. You know, if he says he's complying with the code, that gives him a little more protection, I think. But yeah, it may take some discretion, because obviously you can't anticipate every circumstance that might be encountered out in the field. So certainly a little discretion is necessary.
I'm curious about several things with this, with regards to, you mentioned safety, as far as going from a wider sidewalk to a more narrow one. I'm also thinking about drainage and how that would work along that with the street. There's, I think, several factors probably to be considered in this whole deal.
I fully support 5 foot sidewalks. I think we should always have our eye toward the future. I don't think we should allow 3 foot sidewalks unless there's extenuating circumstances. And so anyway, that would be my vote.
Yeah, I would think going with 5 foot ahead, but I would not be in favor of trying to rip out all the 3 footers and put in 5 foot now. The city would
Right, and that was one of the questions I did have about the sidewalks. So how would this apply to, let's say you you're in the sidewalk replacement program and it happens to be 3 foot in front of your house, what would that do then? So that's one of the questions that I would have. Other than that, if it's new, I think it should always be 5 foot.
Yeah, I'll add, part of the impetus from the Public Works Director was exactly what you said. He just didn't feel right about the cost share program replacing non-ADA compliant sidewalks. That was another reason he brought up for maybe making this change.
And I'd have a tendency to agree with that too, yes.
I guess where the conflict comes in is if there's a new development and there are existing 3-foot sidewalks on either side, I think it would be stupid to make them build a 5-foot. So I guess that's where the friction comes. Do we force a house that's already in a 3-foot sidewalk area to build a 5-foot and that would stand out? Or do we pay the cost to rip it all up and replace it with the 5-foot? I mean, you got to have one standard or another. It seems like that's where there'd be friction, and I wonder what the other members feel about that situation.
Yeah, the concerns have come, so it's a single-family home where there's no, I mean, they're building a new one, and, first person is building a modular home, and they're putting everything they can, and when you tell them 5-foot sidewalks, I know your neighbors have 3, but the extra concrete they're upset with. But anyway, so the way the code's written now, what we'd have to do is take out that exception for infill redevelopment that would allow the 3-foot. And that's the recommendation of the Public Works Director. We take that out. Jason came up to us with, there is an ability to ask for a special exception. I was kind of like, yeah, every single person building a new single-family home with this situation is going to ask for that. So that's tough. I think that puts you in a tough place. But
Now, keep in mind, if they're building a new home or replacing an existing home on a lot that already has a 3-foot sidewalk, if they don't have to replace the sidewalk, in other words, it's still in good condition, then they don't have to build under the ADA. They don't have to increase it to 5 feet. Now, if the sidewalk's destroyed either because of the construction going on or just because it's old and it's starting to heave and all that, then the ADA would suggest that you've got to replace it with a 5-foot.
yeah, for the most part, sidewalks weren't built until the homes were built. So if it's a vacant lot in the city, that's the situation we're talking about.
Well, I think they just have to know up front that going into it, you're gonna have to have a sidewalk if you put a sidewalk in.
Right.
If it's in an HOA that calls for a sidewalk, it's gonna be 5 foot. They just have to know that, I guess.
Yep.
So taking that out, their suggestion was,
Code committee really kind of left it up to you.
Is that what you want, Jason? You'd rather have, because you, like she just said, there'd be a lot of people coming in and wanting that exception, the 3-foot exception.
No, and you can't apply, what that would result in is everybody asking for a special exception. It would have to be decided upon, by you guys, not by staff.
So this wouldn't be administrative then? You wouldn't be able to, this is,
Well, it would have to go before us, and then it would go before.
If it was part of a requirement, then we have a special exception you can apply to most everything in our land use code chapters now. So people could they could try to go down that road, even if we said staff wouldn't support it. But, again, we went to the Land Use Code Committee with this, and they were kind of in a similar place you guys are at as to like what's the logical and right thing to do. So, yeah, just looking for some feedback from you guys.
I mean, I would support allowing for a 3 foot where there's existing 3 foot. I don't think it's a good idea to make them put a 5 foot, and then it would aesthetically look terrible. I mean, maybe it might provide a little bit better access for that one segment of sidewalk, but if we don't say, okay, we're gonna do one of two things. Either we're gonna mandate the 5 foot and then we're gonna rip up the 3 foot and replace it with 5 foot, or or we're going to have to allow an exception. So I think it's a difficult situation because sidewalks are very expensive. Cost a lot of money to rip them up and replace them. And if the city had to rip up every 3 foot segment and replace it with a 5 foot, that would cost a lot of money.
Yeah, and that's not what the ADA requires.
Right.
ADA does say that financial considerations are not relevant to whether or not you comply. So it's based on the physical layout of the property, whether there are tree roots in the way, that you don't want to kill a mature tree just to get your 5 foot sidewalk, that sort of thing. I think one thing you may want to consider is whether you require a transition from the 3 foot to the 5 foot so that it's not a 90-degree, so you don't just have a 2 foot jut out, that maybe that it rounds off back to the 3 foot so that I don't know if awkward's the right word, but it would blend in with the other sidewalk a little better if you had the little apron on either end of the 5 foot. Obviously, that's more money, more concrete.
I've got a suggestion that might make you feel better. So the people staff has felt bad for is the person with a 75 foot wide lot, putting the new house in, 3 foot the whole block, and having a 5 foot there is pretty strange. For the 60 to 7,500 feet that's in front of the house. Would it feel any better if we wrote, right now, the wording that's in there that's suggested to be removed says, infill or redevelopment projects shall design and construct new sidewalks in conformance with the existing sidewalks adjacent to the development site, regardless of whether they conform with the standards in this section. What if we clarified to say redevelopment of one or infill of one single-family home? So that if it were a bigger development, no, we're not, they gotta go to the 5. Does that feel any better?
Well, yeah, I would think that if a developer comes in, all empty lots, and they're gonna build houses and put in sidewalks, that they should all be 5 foot.
Right, and that's what the code
Yeah, okay.
says here, but it had that provision for infill or redevelopment when there's 3 foot on either side.
I don't know if I want them coming before us and the city council if every time they want to connect install a new 3 foot sidewalk where there's other 3 foot sidewalks. I think that would create a burden on the city, and I think it's better handled administratively than having to come before us and the city council for every type of sidewalk project that wants to do the 3 foot.
Right, so what I'm hearing is, you got one house here that's got a 3 foot, another house over here's got a 3 foot, you gotta say, call it an empty lot, they come in and build, and now ADA says you gotta have 5 foot, so you're going 3 foot, 5 foot, 3 foot, is that the picture I'm seeing?
Right,
So ADA did not intend their standards to be anything but for safety. Why would putting a 5 foot sidewalk next to 2 3 foot sidewalks make it safer?
passing zone.
Yeah.
It's a passing lane.
I mean, I agree. We've got a lot of infill
It'd make it
lots
more
where
dangerous.
the whole neighborhood are 3-foot sidewalks. Why would you put in a 5-foot, having to get rid of the 90-degree angle to make it safer, when common sense just tells you, you build a 3-foot sidewalk?
Well, isn't that what
And then
we,
when it's all new construction and an area where they have 5-foot sidewalks, then they put in 5-foot sidewalks.
yeah, isn't that kind of what this says already, is if it's existing, it would match the 3-foot instead of,
Yeah, when they wrote the new code, they put in that exception for people that are building one house and the whole block's 3 foot. The Public Works Director suggested taking that out, feeling that we shouldn't condone non-compliant sidewalks in any way, shape, or form.
but the suggestion is to,
Everybody has a good point here. We don't know what to do.
the suggestion is to remove the allowance of 3 foot when the
Yes.
adjacent walks to 3 foot.
I've got it up here. There you go. So that was the provision, C. The suggestion would be to take C away. You could probably take D too.
But it still has the requirement of 5 foot in all districts, right?
Right, the requirement's 5 feet, most places 9 feet in the central business district.
Lost it. Yeah, it would seem to make sense to me that it fits in with what everybody's been saying. If you just take it out. Or am I misinterpreting something?
So if we take C out, everyone builds a 5-foot sidewalk. If you're building a sidewalk, it's compliant, regardless of the fact that it might look dumb and, yeah.
And we could not put something in there that, you know, if you're building and it's adjacent to a 5-foot sidewalk, you have to build a 5-foot sidewalk. And we could also put something in, if you're building and there's a 3-foot sidewalk adjacent to you, then you wouldn't have to put in the 5 foot.
Yeah, if you look at the wording of C, the red line up on your screen,
Yeah, and
that was intended to allow the match what the neighbors did.
And that is corner to corner, like for a whole street?
No, the whole street, they're building 5. But this is only a small infill project.
I support including C. So I don't know what the other committee members feel, but if you're building adjacent to a 3-foot, I don't think you should be required to put in a 5-foot.
Are there any examples in town of this already happening where they put in 5 and they had in a 3?
Did anyone do it yet?
I've walked most of the streets of the city, and I've found a lot with no sidewalk, but I couldn't think of one example of 3 going to 5. It would be maybe helpful to see that.
I argued pretty hard with one person.
well,
Remember what the solution was?
Yeah, I think part of the concern from the Public Works Director is that the city has this concrete share program where the city pays part of the cost to redo the sidewalk. And I think his concern is, does the city want to be financially participating in building or rebuilding non-compliant sidewalks? And I think that's his basic concern is, if it's a private developer that's building it on their own, that's one thing, but if the city is paying, Jason, is it a 50-50 split? Yeah, if the city's paying half the cost to rebuild it, should they be paying for non-ADA compliant sidewalks?
Well, if they're
I would, you know, I think it's a good idea in the central business district where most disabled people, most people that are using the widened sidewalks might use, as opposed to small neighborhoods in our city that might only be used by, you know, the residents and the people that live around it. You know, I wholeheartedly support, you know, these standards in the central business district. When it comes down to the individual neighborhoods, I think that they should be allowed to, you know, build what's adjacent to them. So I think we probably should include the provision, the C provision in the code here.
So my understanding is if we take out C, it doesn't prevent people from building the 3 foot to connect to other 3 foot, but it takes away the city's potential liability, I guess, or cost sharing.
I think it does. Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, I guess we do have to grapple with,
Comes into cost share, the city could say, you gotta do 5, or we're not cost sharing.
I mean, eventually we might have to tackle this issue down the road to rip up all the 3 foot sidewalks and replace them with bigger sidewalks. I mean, for a long-term plan, I'm not talking about tomorrow, but maybe 20, 30, 50 years. I mean, is that what we want to do? And how do we want to support that? I think it'd be too expensive to have this, you know, to rip up all the 3 foot and put in 5 foots.
why would they recommend taking that out if they want to allow 3 foot to match 3 foot on each side?
He doesn't. So we have that in, and they recommend taking it out, so
Yeah,
you have to do 5 feet everywhere.
Oh, so that's the recommendation, is to do the 5 foot.
Take it out,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Yeah, I don't support that. Wow, wow.
I mean, like I said, in the central business district, I think that might be a different situation where most people who are handicapped are going to be using that area of the city. We might want to have a special program for the CBD to rebuild, expand the sidewalks and things like that. But for the other parts of the city, I really don't agree with it. But for the central business district, where most people are using, you know, the sidewalks, the facilities, I think that could be an exception.
Well, I think E covers what you're saying. B, sidewalks must be in the CBD. It,
Well, about the cost sharing program, I don't know how that works with this, so, you know.
Patrick, do we need to open this up for public comment then, sometime during this public hearing, and close the public comment sometime during this public hearing?
Sure, I would suggest that.
Okay.
If you're done, Nancy, are you done with all your amendments?
Unless there are more questions.
Okay. So yeah, open it up. I don't see any public.
We'll come back to it. This is for,
Well, you can open it up anyway.
Yeah.
okay. We'll open it up for public comments to speak for or against. Seeing none, we'll close the public comment section of the public hearing and continue with the public hearing. You got questions, Rich?
Yes, regarding the parking lot lighting. So are you getting rid, so 5 lumens, so lumens is going out.
Lumens is going out, foot candles are coming back.
So we can address the definitions, that's in the next section we're gonna talk about, right?
Whichever ones you want to go into in detail, I'll pull up here and we can go into detail. Here's the lighting proposal.
The other thing is I would agree regarding the decks all the way to the lot line. I don't think that's a good idea generally. I agree.
We can pull those back.
Thank you.
The one thing that you had mentioned that I think is an important it should be an important initiative for the city is the dark sky project, where you know, we don't want to have light pollution in our city, and so I guess that lumens or that lighting standard for the parking lot would address that. I mean, because it does. I mean, I guess there are certain parts of the city we might want to protect a little bit more and have different lighting standards. Make sure they're not as bright. Maybe near parks, maybe near schools. Maybe there might be some areas, but I think light pollution or excessive lighting can be a problem, and I think we're on the right track to making sure that it's not, that we don't make the standard too bright.
And just to clarify, so the current code, the way it is now, it's not dark sky compliant, but it does require that all fixtures be downward directed and fully shielded. So it's pretty close to a dark sky requirement. There were
support that.
people that wanted that in here and others. So we left it the way it was. But for the most part, it's not, you're not doing searchlights and.
The only thing that, and I don't know if they still have it, but they had something over by the city market that was like 24 hours, like some sort of like police red and blue like type of light, and I couldn't imagine like living right across from that. I don't know if it's still going on, but there was some sort of security device in the city market parking lot that was really bright.
Yeah, and that wouldn't be a lighting issue, that would be a sign probably, right?
Okay.
And we don't allow that kind of a sign, so maybe it's a code enforcement issue.
I don't know if you remember it, but it was like a security,
Yeah.
and it had different alternating lights on it.
Do you know what the foot candles are at the rec center parking lot? I mean,
Are they too low or too high?
I don't know.
Oh.
I don't walk around there much at night.
With a light meter? You don't do that? Yeah.
I did have something I wanted to ask about. First off, I think the majority of this is done really well, and I appreciate that. But on the carport thing, requiring that carports be constructed in a manner that appears as a part of the original construction of the home, would that pretty much eliminate someone being able to just put up a carport type feature that you can just order online and put together out in front of the house?
Yes. And that is in the code now, that the suggestion is to take it out.
The suggestion is to take it out?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm for that. I just, when it comes to, feels more, at some point you feel more like an HOA than you are just trying to help regulate things being done evenly for all the citizens in the city. And when it's all about the aesthetics, I'm not going to be so much for that. Practical use, allowing someone to have cover for the car, that makes sense. And so I'm definitely going to be for that, removing that restriction or requirement.
Yeah, I can think of years ago, somebody had to come and get a conditional use permit or something to put up.
Still do. If it violates the setback,
Yeah.
which
well,
most of them do because they're in the front.
I had one last question for you about the natural medicine centers. Did the city council allow them in the central business district? Is that what I'm understanding when they took a vote last year or
Yes,
whenever it was?
yes.
As long as it was a certain number of feet away from a school, right?
There are that?
Yeah, there are distance
Yes.
restrictions from schools, from other natural
center.
medicine facilities. And remember, these are not retail stores. These are
Treatment centers.
essentially treatment clinics where you go and you spend all day and you do your trip. But it has to be a licensed therapist. There's restrictions in the city code. And again, the city, the state says you got to allow them. You can't ban them, and but it allows some flexibility in time, place, and manner restrictions. And so that's why the city determined that, you know, you could get it, it's use by right, permitted use out in industrial zone district. Commercial and central business, it's a use by conditional use.
Yeah, we put, I pulled it up, natural medicine healing centers are conditional uses in the CBD and commercial zone, permitted in industrial, and then the cultivation manufacturers and testers are conditional in the commercial zone and permitted in industrial.
Do we have any of those two in the central business district now?
Nobody's asked for one yet.
Yeah, I didn't think so. Okay.
But I mean, if the city council voted to allow them in the central business district, I mean, I'm very hesitant of forcing them to be in the industrial district,
We're not forcing them, we're.
or making them come before the city, before our committee to get a conditional use exception, correct? I mean, I think this is I think these are important centers to help people with struggles who are going through a lot of problems, and just like the hospital, just like mental health facilities, I don't think that we should be forcing the natural medicine centers into the industrial district. I think they should have a fair shot to be in the commercial district as well. I don't think that should be a conditional, I don't think they should have to go through a process for that. I think we need to open our doors to these centers, and I think it could be a critical industry for our town. And you know, I'm not in agreement to putting more restrictions on the natural medicine centers. So that's my 2 cents.
So you'd suggest we change those to permitted and all?
If the city council a year ago said, hey, they gave the green light for these centers, I'm in agreement. And I don't think I think they should be allowed, and I don't think there should be any conditional, restrictions.
Patrick, what's the state say on?
The state doesn't restrict to particular zone districts. They just say you have to allow them. You can't outlaw them or disallow them. But you have to provide you can have time, place, and manner restrictions, which is what we've done here. But the state doesn't say it can't be in a residential district, or it can't be here, or can't be there. It leaves that up to the municipality, and the municipalities, some of them just have chosen not to adopt natural medicine regulations at all, which means they're allowed anywhere within the city limits as long as they comply with the state requirements.
What other cities have just not passed anything, and like you have just said, just allowed them to?
I'm not sure. I don't think Mancos or Dolores or Dove Creek have adopted any regulations.
I know, I also work with Ignacio. I work with Mancos and Dolores, and they haven't done anything yet, but they haven't touched their codes. Ignacio did not want them in their community at all, but they have to have them.
It's illegal. You have to allow them.
What?
They have to allow them.
They have to allow them, and they realize that, and they work very hard to limit where they might be. They don't allow manufacturing. It's a different situation. They're surrounded by tribal land, which doesn't allow them. So They did their best to restrict them with large limits and conditional use and all of that.
Well,
But we did a whole, I could try and find it. We did compare a bunch of different communities on what they're doing. And just like Pat said, some are like, whatever, do them wherever. Some are restricting them. This proposal is fairly typical where, yeah, we want to allow them, and we know we have to allow them, but we want to put some constraints on to see how it works.
But even if they didn't have to get a conditional use permit, they might still have to abide by place, distance, certain regulations, correct?
Because the city already adopted that, yes.
Right, so,
But we felt that it was confusing to have it in city code and not land use code. So if someone comes in, looks at the land use code and says, oh, there's no rules, it doesn't address it, but it is in city code as far as,
we need to attract every business we can get in this city. We don't need to put onerous restrictions and make it hard for them to do business. I'd rather us have no law at all than to try to restrict the businesses that could really help out our community, help people out, and make a difference out there. This is something unique to Colorado. Only two states allow this, Oregon and Colorado, and I think this could be really unique for our community and, like I said, really help people out, and I don't want to put restrictions on it. Obviously, this will probably go to the city council if whatever we recommend, and they're going to have to make the decision.
what's the city code say now?
it basically matches what we put in here, with the exception is it didn't talk about whether they were conditional uses or permitted uses, because it wouldn't. I mean, that's what.
So if we recommend what the staff recommends, city council still has to take a look at it and have their public hearing and stuff, okay.
Oh, elevate accountability.
But you could recommend that they be permitted uses everywhere, if you want.
Well, I'm in favor of having some sort of restriction as to the public being able to look at it where it might be. So
Well, it will already be restricted based on, distance from schools, distance from a church. There are certain regulations that they have to follow, even if we said, okay, we're not going to pass any type of zoning or any type of regulations on them.
I
They still
understand
have to
that.
abide by a bunch of rules.
I understand
Yeah,
that.
the essential thing is whether you make it a permitted use or a conditional use. The city code already, that council adopted, already limits it to the specific zone districts that Nancy's talking about. So that's not what's on the table for discussion. It's whether or not the land use code adds any additional restrictions to those zone districts. And the proposal is that it's a permitted use in industrial zones, it's a conditional use in commercial and CBD.
Well, I was going to say earlier, elevate accountability, eliminate doubt. And I do think it's a good thing to have some restriction on any type of business like this that would come through, and make sure that they're going to abide by the rules that they're supposed to abide by, even within the zones. I think it's a good idea, and I think it's well put together, and I'd be in favor of it.
Any other comments on this section? Man, do we have to have a motion on every section?
No, we gave you a draft resolution that references all the sections.
Yeah. You can make a motion that says you adopt the staff recommendations with the following amendment or amendments, and, whichever ones you want to change from the staff recommendation. Or you could just say, I move that we recommend denial of this resolution to city council. I mean, that.
And that's the simplest, right? And that's the simplest route.
Right, yeah. Maybe not recommended by staff, but it's certainly an option that you have.
I mean, because what I'm hearing is, well, you start with the natural medicine, and then you go to the sidewalks, and then you go to the carport design, and then you go to the, the deck out to the lot line.
Now, if we make a do we pass along these other things that we have talked about, or it's just pretty much they don't really get all this, the other ideas that we've spoken about?
Minutes of your discussion,
Okay.
that'll be part of the packet for their consideration of the same, a similar resolution. If you do a negative, then staff won't amend the resolution. If you do a motion that would say, I move we adopt resolution, whatever the number is, with the following amendment or amendments, change the section regarding carports to,
I mean, if it was just one thing, I would probably recommend doing that, but it seems like there's a lot of disagreement with many points, so, I mean, I make a motion to recommend to disapprove the
You could also make
resolution number 5.
a motion to continue it to your next meeting and ask staff to bring you back the changes so you could see them.
If it was just one thing that we could just say, okay, we make an amendment, let's do it, but I think there's a lot of issues here. I mean, I disagree with the natural medicine, limiting them. I disagree with there's a dispute over the 3-foot versus 5-foot sidewalks. I mean, I think those are the two main problems. I mean, I would make a motion to recommend disapproval of resolution number 5, the land use code revisions.
And what's your reason for disapproval? Because Patrick.
The two main points are, I don't think there should be a blanket 5-foot requirement for the sidewalks. I think there should be an exception for the 3-foot sidewalk. And then I think natural medicine, I don't think there should be any constraints on natural medicine businesses. Those are the two reasons I make a motion to recommend disapproval of resolution number 5.
So what's in here, and staff is recommending that the suggestion is to remove the allowance for 3-foot sidewalks when adjacent walks are 3 foot. So yeah, you'd go 3 foot, 5 foot, 3 foot. Is that what they're recommending? That, yeah.
You could also move, the option is there to move to forward on the ones you're okay with.
Do what?
and Forward on the changes that you agree with. And I'm hearing 3 that there's concern with. Natural medicine, the decks being all the way to the property line, the patios and low decks to the property line, and the third one would be the sidewalks. You could make a motion to amend what you're passing on to require decks to meet the setbacks, to not remove the section for sidewalks, and suggest that, and recommend that natural medicine be permitted in all in CBD and commercial.
Okay, let me see if I can repeat the motion that's on the table. That doesn't have a second yet. But the motion was to deny this?
Motion to recommend to disapprove the
actually, it would just be a motion
motion.
P and Z resolution. So if you deny it, then it goes to city council without a recommendation from the planning commission.
And the reasons for denial were he didn't agree with the natural medicine or the sidewalk
Well,
requirement.
number 1, the natural medicine. I don't think there should be constraints. Number 2, the sidewalk debate between the 3 and the 5 foot. And then number 3, I don't think a deck should be allowed all the way to the property line.
Okay. So if,
I assume if we recommend denying this, they're still gonna have to give the same presentation that we received about, all these different issues at the next city council meeting. So they will be aware of these problems. I mean, it's not like they're not gonna hear about them, right? They're gonna get the same presentation, right? Okay.
yeah, but I agree with you on proposed change in medicine. I agree that they should be changed, and you want them not changed. Is that correct?
Well, then, yeah,
Okay, and so as far as if there is a second to your motion, I'm gonna vote no, because I want that to be passed on, that I want the changes in there.
And Mr. Chair, just as a point of order, technically, you're supposed to get a second and then have your
What?
discussion before the vote. If there's no second, then it dies for lack of a second, and
But I'm,
we'll
okay.
open it
I'm
up for additional.
clarifying what the motion is and what people should be interpreting the motion to be. And so I think I'm clear on what it is. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, we got a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Hearing none, motion fails. I would entertain another motion then.
I'm the new kid on the block, so I don't really know what to, how to make a motion, but as I'm understanding the conversation going, I would like to make a motion to advance this with the amendments being added, that we include the 3-foot exception on the sidewalks, that be sent forward with our recommendation, and not requiring for that new construction that 5-foot, as long as it's matching the existing things that are there.
Or the decks were the other.
Oh, yes, and that the decks, that we consider that those decks aren't going all the way to the property lines, and that they're back the right distance. And so those would be the amendments that I recommend. Other than that, I believe we can advance this.
So let's make sure I understand the motion correctly. Is the motion would be to adopt or to recommend what the city staff has recommended, with the 2 exceptions being the sidewalk requirement being taken, or not being what the staff recommended, and the decks having a proper setback. Does that sound about what it was? Okay. I guess, is there a second to that motion then?
I second it.
I've got a motion and a second on the table. Is there any further discussion? Or
I won't
amendments?
vote for it just based on the sidewalk, so, just so you know that's the only thing that's,
Okay.
but I'm not gonna vote for it because of that.
Wait,
So you want to have a standard 5-foot sidewalk
Everywhere.
in the future? Okay.
They have the ability to ask, if there are extenuating circumstances, but, we should be putting in 5-foot sidewalks everywhere, all the time.
so you could make an amendment to the motion to require the 5-foot sidewalks.
And I don't think that's,
And
You
second
don't-
it.
You want to do an amendment to the motion?
and we have a second too, so.
You have a motion with a second.
Yeah. But somebody can move to amend the motion, and then you have a second to that, and then you vote on the amendment, and then you vote on the original motion.
I think we got to vote once we have a second, right, Pat?
Yeah, I think if you
Yeah.
want to amend it, you should vote this one down, and somebody should make a new motion.
Or it could just,
Well,
it
that's
could
the
pass.
easy way, yeah.
I mean, it
Yeah.
could just pass, and, that could happen, and that's fine.
All right, well, we got a motion and a second. Doesn't sound like we want any amendments to the motion. So let's go ahead. Any other further discussion?
I just want to make sure I understand your point there. I believe that as it's stated, the motion that I just made is that it should be 5 everywhere unless there's already just the 3-foot sidewalks already in existence to match that 3-foot. But you're in favor of, even in those neighborhoods, it going to 5.
That's correct.
Okay.
So that the sidewalk would look 3, 5, and 3.
Yes.
Okay.
And I get the future focus. I do realize that I would love if there was a plan to just move everything to 5, and that makes sense. It's just I don't know that it's feasible, but I don't know that it's reasonable to require other citizens to do what other people aren't required to do.
Rich, you got any other comments?
I've said everything, and I think
Okay.
we're ready for a vote if there's no other.
All right, let's proceed to vote then.
Burkett,
Yes.
Fryhofer,
Yes.
Forcini,
Nay.
Landrith,
No.
Remy,
Yes, motion passes. So it moves on to city council.
I think in the end, that works pretty well anyway. They're gonna have the same kind of discussion, right? So,
Your TV's down for the night, you can come and watch.
They might have an audience, huh?
Okay, thanks. Thank you, everyone, for their input. Next item on the agenda. Is the unfinished business, there's none. New business, overview of the city comprehensive plan. Jason, I guess you get to give us the overview.
Yeah, so I welcome you guys to pull up that memorandum I sent you. There's a lot of content in there, and my goal was to provide some high-level information about comprehensive plans, why we have them, and how cities can use them, and then talk a little bit about what's coming up next with our comprehensive plan. So I'll just kind of like track through the memo, super high level, and then we can stop and ask questions if you guys. So I started out in the memo, just wanted to provide you with the existing state statutes in Colorado as they relate to comprehensive plans, what the statutory authority is for those to even exist in the first place. I then went into some detail on what required elements of comprehensive plans are through statute and how our existing plan meet those requirements. And I just want to make note for you guys and any public that might be watching this that our existing plan meets and exceeds current state requirements. Next, dove a little bit into providing you with some information on this commission's roles and responsibilities in maintaining, revising, and fully rewriting a comprehensive plan. Some of these responsibilities are delegated through the state statutes, but some others by the city council who adopted the plan, such as the desire to have the implementation plan reviewed by this commission annually and have city council plan review it every 2 years. So just taking a step back and looking at the overall format, and hopefully you guys have had a chance to at least just look at what we have online. It's fairly expansive document, and so just the way it's formatted and how big it is, it makes the process of reviewing it and doing periodic updates somewhat daunting, in my opinion. So my experience with these plans in the past in other places is that their functionality is sometimes compromised by the idea that they need to contain as much information as possible. And There's no required formatting or really content beyond the basic elements dictated in statute. So I've seen plans that are like 200 plus pages long, and I've seen some that are 50 pages long. So to me, as staff, it's really not a wonder that many times they're created and put on a shelf, and they're only really referenced when needed, specifically for land use decisions. And so kind of on that note, I also included a section in the memo that just kind of outlines the functionality of the comprehensive plan that we have. When do we really look at it? And, you know, I have some, you know, some suggestions that, you know, we can go into when we rewrite the comprehensive plan, but there are some very specific land use decisions where the comprehensive plan is called out as something that needs to be weighed. And when those come up, staff is going to point those out in our staff report to you guys. So for you guys that are new, you don't need to peel back through the entire comprehensive plan unless you want to. We'll provide you with those sections, and you can go and research that stuff yourself. Other ways that, you know, the city could be using the comprehensive plan is to make decisions around, you know, public investments and how we provide input to, you know, regional and state agencies. For instance, highway improvement projects, the city, you know, participates in a regional planning initiative that CDOT has. We work with the county when they're looking at doing development on the fringes of our municipality, and work with them on if the property's not going to annex in at this time, you know, we work with the county to impose upon some basic standards of like how to design roads and some infrastructure so that when it is possible that annex is in, it's not like a wholesale change to all of those elements for the person that wants, or the developer that wants to do that. Finally, I just want to provide you with the background information around the two legislatively required elements. And those came through Senate Bill 24-174. It's the same bill that required us to create a housing action plan and a housing needs assessment. These two particular elements, the strategic growth element and the water supply element, we are supposed to adopt those elements into our comprehensive plan by the end of this calendar year, December 31st, 2026. Due to some delays with DOLA providing some information to local municipalities about how to even create these elements, and some things around procurement of like grant money to like go through the process. We're not going to make that deadline, but that's okay. I've spoken with DOLA, and as long as we're working towards it, it's not going to have a negative impact on our ability to seek funding for other needs for the city.
Jason, excuse me.
Yeah, go for it.
In those those two items,
Yes, sir.
is this something that comes to planning and zoning first, or do we have workshops with the city council? I mean,
Well, and that's something that you guys can decide how you want to proceed, but at the end of the day, adoption of those elements as either standalone chapters for our comprehensive plan, it's just a revision, right? Or if we're going to integrate those elements into existing chapters, because there's places where maybe water supply should be discussed in terms of like economic development and housing and things like that. Either way, it's pretty clear in statute that the Planning and Zoning Commission is the one that will hold the hearings, do the community engagement work, obviously with staff and a consultant helping along the way to like garner that and collect all that community input into the changes that we're making. Of course, City Council's aware, but This is like one of the things that you guys, as a planning and zoning commission, are fully responsible for adopting. So, to answer your question, you know, that's something that I will probably at some point be able to bring to council for a suggestion. I don't think it makes any sense for your two bodies to be operating in silos as it comes to
Yeah,
this.
when we were going through the land use code, essentially, city council would be having a work session, and P and Z would be in attendance, and we'd all be contributing
Absolutely.
to it and stuff, so that would make sense.
Yeah.
But you're saying we decide this totally?
Well, city council is gonna adopt the final plan, but,
Well, they don't have to adopt it. By statute, it's
well,
solely your responsibility. Now, most jurisdictions, the governing body, whether it be Board of County Commissioners or City Council, they will ratify the decision of the Planning and Zoning Commission so that it's not hanging out there like, well, does council agree with it? And so my guess is they will attend your public outreach. Some of them will, and if they have real concerns about the way you're going, in the direction you're going on the plan, they will probably let staff know, and staff will relay that to you, or they may contact you directly. But ultimately, by statute, it is the one thing that P&Z is responsible for, and it doesn't require any ratification or adoption by the governing body, but most of them do, so that, you know, it's recognized as one of the foundational documents of the land use process especially, and there's no dispute that, well, you know, this is P&Z's plan and we don't have to follow it, kind of a thing.
But once we make a decision, it's done.
It's done,
They
yeah.
can't turn it back.
They can come back and vote yes or no on whether they want to ratify it,
But that doesn't matter. But that doesn't matter at all, because it is our sole responsibility. So whatever they decide, it doesn't matter.
yeah.
It's our decision. Interesting.
So would it make sense that when we have a work session on different things, we invite city council to the work session?
I would think that would make a lot of sense.
Okay.
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, they were nice enough to invite us, to
Yeah.
their work session, see if they show up or not, I guess.
You guys just have to have good food. That,
So I did provide you guys the request for proposal that we just put out, just so you have a better understanding of what we were asking of a potential contractor. We did our best to kind of define what those final deliverables should be, but again, this is a very novel process for the state. It's fairly new legislation, and so there's a lot of municipalities and counties all around the state that are really trying to grapple with what these specific elements are going to look like in their own comprehensive plans. But I'll just make a note here. This is like two pieces that we have to do right now. The comprehensive plan, at the very least, of what we have is due for you know, some consideration and probably some revision, if not fully rewriting it. It's old enough that you guys would be justified in saying we should redo the comprehensive plan. Now that is a really large project.
Is that something that we can contribute to, Jason?
That's something that yeah.
So we can actually, review the current plan, review other cities, review other similar situated rural communities, and do some research to see what they might have done for their comprehensive plans, what's working, what's not.
Yeah.
And we could bring that, deliver that to you, and you could include that in in the package that comes before us.
Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you have two options. One could be done by the end of the year, if not sooner, is to just adopt the two amendments that are required by the statute without rewriting the whole plan or doing other significant amendments to the existing plan. I believe, Jason, aren't you in the process of soliciting an RFP for a consultant to help do the complete rewrite of the plan, and that may be a year-long process?
No, right now, we're soliciting for the two specific elements, but one of the deliverables is for that consultant to provide the city with recommendations about where these two elements should be integrated into a comprehensive plan rewrite. I mean, and to your point, you know, you guys are free to do whatever research you want, but, you know, as I pointed out in the memo, you're also free to direct staff to do research and provide it to you as well. So just putting it out there, you know, and I think, you know, that kind of leaves me with the last thing I just wanted to talk about briefly. So I have two items that I was hoping you guys might want to discuss this evening. So the first one is we have a member that has already volunteered. Commissioner Borcini has already volunteered his time to help with the RFP selection process for the consultant. So I wondered if any of the other members were interested in participating in that selection process. What I need to do is I need to put together kind of a diverse RFP review team. So you'll be, whoever, if you choose to volunteer for it, you don't have to decide right now, unless you want to go ahead and delineate that on the record. You know, you'll be part of a diverse group of, you know, staff across the city that'll be impacted by these particular elements. But you'll be participating in that scoring process, doing interviews with the top candidates, that kind of thing. Next, and I noted this because it's pretty clear that our existing comprehensive plan lays out some timelines for review and potential revisions that the city has just not historically followed. So I guess what I wanted to know is, I know we have these two elements that we're going to do, but you guys also have the ability to direct staff in terms of working on a review of what we have in terms of an existing implementation program, and providing you with that report now. There may be reasons you might want to direct me to start working on that. One of them being just really kind of backing up and taking a look at the current comprehensive plan holistically and starting to think through what what the city might want to revise in the new one, or when we rewrite it, what kind of content do we want, what's changed completely. But I think just overall, for me personally, I think the legislatively required mandates, we have to review those every 5 years and document that. I would say that, whatever the plan looks like, the ultimate plan looks like in a couple of years, once we get to the full rewrite, it'd be my desire to be doing something annually with both this commission and council, just to review where things are at. Technology is speeding things up in our society, and whatever we think is going on now or in 5 years could be completely different. But those are the two things I wanted to talk about. Who wants to maybe participate on the RFP selection process and scoring and all that? And then the next is, do you guys want me to take a look at the current implementation program and provide you guys with an overview as a starting point for what we have right now?
And what were you saying you were mentioning a complete rewrite, how far from today?
Yeah, So I think a best practice in most municipalities is that when you do a comprehensive plan, I'll just use the example of, our Parks Department, right? They are getting ready to embark on a new Parks and Rec master plan. What you want to do with the comp plan is reference that plan and not just try to make the comp plan have all that information in it. And so with that in mind, Public Works is working on some infrastructure plans. Parks and Rec is obviously about ready to do their plan. And so we've just agreed as staff, not only because it makes sense for the ultimate outcome but you don't want to confuse the community by trying to do all these master plans all at one time. So we would like to wait for Parks and Rec to kind of get through their process. My guess would be, in talking with the director of Parks and Rec, that it would be wise of us maybe next year to apply for some funding with the idea that maybe we would start the full rewrite in 2028.
Yeah, I can remember doing a master streets comprehensive plan. So yeah, my couple of questions were, the RFP you're gonna put out, who's paying for it? Who's gonna pay for the people to come in and,
Oh, okay, so yeah, it's a matching grant with DOLA.
okay,
Yeah, so DOLA's funded 75% of it, and the city put in. And it was really hard, to be honest, to estimate how much that project was going to cost, because again, nobody's done it. So
yeah.
DOLA made some recommendations on what they thought the cost of the project should be, and that's where we ended
Because
up.
when we did the land use code, I know we had a grant to help with that, and
Yeah.
that was quite a process, a couple of years. Anyway, it was before Jason's time, but, and then, do you know when the last review was of this comprehensive plan?
No.
Because I don't remember ever doing it.
It was adopted in 2008, right?
Correct.
So I think that's the last review.
Okay.
So that's why I'm asking you guys right now. Like, I'm willing to put in the work to
Well,
take a look at our current plan and at least meet that basic requirement that city council put on us back in 2008. And it might reveal something, important for staff and for you guys.
Would it be better to just throw everything out and just start from square one? To have like a fresh plan, a fresh look, rather than just trying to cobble together, a previous plan?
Yeah, I mean, that's really what I'm asking you. Is like we can do a review right now of what we have, and not make any edits at all, unless there's something glaring that we just feel like needs to be addressed. I can't think of what those elements would be off the top of my head. It seems like the document is functional right now, at least for land use application purposes. But I think that, like I said before, my recommendation would be that we would wait for Parks and Rec to get pretty far down the road with their plan and let Public Works solidify and have City Council adopt some of their plans around infrastructure. And then we would go into the community with existing plans that had already been vetted by the community and adopt those by reference into the new comp plan. And hopefully draw some goals from those plans that have already been established.
Because I think the most important thing about this plan is that we have a vision for the future of Cortez. Not what it's going to look like in, 1 or 5 years, but maybe 20 or 50 years in the future, and putting things into the plan that will encourage smart growth, that will encourage different types of initiatives in our city to maybe, have it more pedestrian friendly, have more access to bike trails and paths and things like that. So I'm really interested in it, and I think it's really important for our future. And I'm looking forward to working with you, Jason, and coming up with a contractor that can, help us work through this process. I don't know if anybody else wants to wants to come aboard and join some of these meetings, but the more the merrier. The more voices that we have, the better it's going to be.
It would be interesting to hear what the discussion was back in 2005, 6, 7, and 8. It's probably the same thing as Charlie's mentioning now, but so it sounds to me like we need to get those two things, the two requirements in by the end of the year, and then go and look at it, the big picture of, okay,
Yeah.
makes sense. And so Charlie's gonna help with the review. Anybody else? You don't decide
You don't
tonight,
have to,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
I'll be, we probably won't be going into that scoring until probably, middle of August, so you guys have a little bit of time to
Well, you-
decide.
Probably give at least 60 or 90 days for an RFP to come back, right?
Yeah, it's not, we opened the first round of proposals, they're due on July 24th. And I try to provide some buffer time for staff to kind of get things set up and then create the committee and go from there. But I would say also kind of similar to land use code, you heard Nancy mention the land use code committee. What we try to do through that process is invite different corners of the community to come in, and I think it's something that I would advocate for, that we do for the comprehensive plan as well, is just have kind of a committee that sort of comes to the table and kind of takes in the feedback that we're getting from community engagement. And,
Like business owners, that type of stuff?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
yeah, I mean, yeah, it's, to do when we get to the full rewrite, it's probably gonna take 1.5 to 2 years to do it right, so.
Well, at least as far as the RFPs, Charlie can represent us, and, I mean, if anybody else wants to join?
Yeah, I mean, I'm
Yes, you
excited
know.
about the process, and I guess we're not going to have a company to work with for a little while, but I think it's an exciting time for our city, and I think there's a lot of good resources, and we can also look at other cities and look to see what has worked and what has failed, and hopefully we'll come up with a comprehensive plan that will meet the needs of the city and hopefully allow for future growth and prosperity.
So Jason, just to clarify though, this RFP that you're asking for participation is for a consultant to do solely the adoption of the two statutorily required elements.
That is correct.
And you'll do another RFP maybe into next year
Next year's,
for the full rewrite.
Yep.
That will be a much longer process, and it'll require probably another committee like the Land Use Code Committee that
Yeah.
you mentioned. And that process seemed to work very well when we did the new Land Use Code. Although I will admit, it was hard to get participation other than city staff. There were maybe 3 or 4 members, a developer, a realtor, an insurance person, and they came to most of the meetings, but it's a pretty long process, and keeping them engaged and participating is a challenge, and I'm sure it will be an equal challenge for the comprehensive plan, but maybe not. Maybe more people will be interested.
yeah.
But thank you for summarizing that, because that was my impression. First RFP was for the 2 items, and then we'll go into the bigger one later on, because that'll cost more money too.
If there's a quicker way that a planner can break up a conversation, a party, is just start talking about planning and land use. So, yeah, land use code's a little bit of a slog. This is a little more aspirational, I think.
This is like the vision for the city for the future.
Correct. Yeah.
Well, and what we do this year won't be wasted, because it's gonna be done in light of what we're gonna start revising next year as well.
Yeah.
And I'll be all for you getting involved in the process of reviewing things, and what you mentioned earlier, I think is a great idea.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I can start working on just kind of an overview of the implementation plan of what we have currently. I don't want provide you guys with some idea of what is in there right now, and maybe talk, with you guys about what we've actually accomplished, because there are things in there we've done. So I'll start working on that. I don't know how long that's gonna take me, but I won't take forever with that piece.
And yeah, giving us, taking a little bit at a time and giving us an update at each meeting even would be
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Do you have access to AI tools and, that will help facilitate the process for you?
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
just want to make sure.
Yeah,
know?
yeah. Our department specifically is piloting an AI platform specific to planning and building right now. So, yes, it does speed up research, I'll put it that way. And it's, 90% of the time, I agree 100% with what it's found, but, what it's not good at is the nuances. Well, it's pretty good at black and white. What it's not good at is helping you decide if an architectural feature fits in a neighborhood, right? So, AI is not the total solution, but yeah, I'm not gonna have to grind away 80 hours a week to analyze it. I'll figure out creative ways to use technology.
I'm glad you have the tools that helps make you more effective, and hopefully it'll make us make better decisions.
Any other questions for Jason? Thank you.
Absolutely.
We've got a couple other items here. We've got a couple boards that we need someone to volunteer to be on. One of them is the Historical Preservation Board. Charlie indicated an interest earlier in that. I guess, is anybody else interested, or? They meet on Thursdays at 5:30 usually, right before this meeting? No, on Tuesdays, I'm sorry. Second Tuesday.
Tuesdays, it's once a month. Yeah.
Yeah, they meet once a month, usually before our meeting. They used to meet on Wednesdays, and I don't know why they changed it, but they did.
I don't know either.
It's on the same day of the month, too?
Second Tuesday of the month. So you could end up being in a historical meeting, maybe get a break, and then come to this meeting.
Oh, this is first Tuesday, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
you're,
yeah, they
you're
meet
talking
the-
about
they meet
council,
the first
first council meeting. Yeah, so you don't have to run into another meeting unless you want to come to city council. Which is
Yeah,
always-
they meet on the first Tuesday. They meet right before us, right?
No, they meet next week. You guys.
Second and fourth Tuesday.
Second and fourth, that's, yeah.
The historical?
No, with the city council.
Oh, no, I'm talking about the historical.
They're next week, I think.
Second
Right?
Tuesday.
Is that right? Yeah, second Tuesday.
Okay. I'll consider it. I need to look at things.
Okay, well, I'll talk to Cheryl and, oh, wait, do we need to appoint somebody tonight? Are you sure it's the second Tuesday? Because that's why we had trouble getting to it, because they wouldn't have time to eat. And so I volunteered for a while, but I just had a text message on when they were meeting.
Well, he's researching, you had asked,
Okay, and then we need a Board of Adjustment, and I'm already on there. Patrick, what is
oh,
it?
no, go ahead. I'll fill you in later after you're done with your business.
Well, I'm on the Board of Adjustment, we've never met, so I'm really not sure what they do. But usually P and Z has two representatives on there. What,
Oh, it has to have two P and Z members on the Board of Adjustment?
we don't have to, but in the past, we've had to. And both of those have gone by the wayside, and I've been on there, but I've never had.
Just to clarify, what the Board of Adjustment does is they hear appeals from administrative decisions either made by Jason or the building department. And generally, it's building department requirements. If the building official imposes a requirement, somebody doesn't like it, their option is to appeal it to the Board of Adjustment.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not aware that they've met in
I've been
the
on there a couple.
4 years I've been here.
And does that go to the P and Z after the Board of Adjustment, or that's,
Board of Adjustment's final,
I see.
yeah. And then if they want to appeal that, I guess they can go to district court.
I
Correct.
couldn't even tell you who else is on the Board of Adjustment.
When do they meet, if they meet?
It's
As-
case by
as
case.
needed.
Is that what it is?
Yes.
And fortunately, we don't run into that very often. Back to the historic preservation, the reason why I was confused is because they just moved the last meeting. It is the first Tuesday of the month at 5 PM.
Yeah.
Here, you were correct. So,
Well, I mean, if it's the first Tuesday, like this says, I believe I could probably do that historic preservation board position. If that's, we need a P and Z person on that board, is that, or is this just looking for somebody to do it?
If we appoint someone, they're a voting member. I attended, but I was never officially appointed, so I told them I can't vote on anything. So I was just there to help represent P and Z because,
yeah, and, Councilmember Randall is a
yeah, April's, yeah.
position, really, and so, if you're going to that meeting, during these meetings, you can provide an update to the rest of the commission on what was talked
And
about.
April is a voting member though, too.
Yeah. So,
I think I'm gonna try to dedicate my efforts towards the planning
Yeah, okay.
plan, if somebody else wants to.
So do we need a motion for Bruce to
Sure,
volunteer?
I would
Okay.
recommend you have a motion to appoint whomever you choose.
I make a motion to appoint Bruce as the member of the Historic Preservation Committee.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Let's proceed to vote.
Fortini,
Aye.
Landrith,
Yes.
Fryhover,
Yes.
Burkett,
Yes.
Do I say yes? I suppose yes.
That's the sound of a train railroading you into the position.
Remy,
Yes. Motion passes. And then Board of Adjustment.
I wouldn't have no problem doing that, but I'm very busy. Then if by some chance something happens in the next I'm busy for 2 months, really busy. But short of that, I'd be happy to participate.
And even without you there, we'd probably still have a quorum, so.
And I might be able to make it, it kind of depends on what day, that's why I was kind of asking.
Unless anybody else expresses an interest. Is there a motion for Rich to be on that board then?
I'll make the motion for Rich to be on the Board
of Adjustment.
of Adjustments.
I second the motion.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Let's proceed to vote.
Landrith,
Okay,
Fortini,
Aye.
Burkett,
Yes.
Fryhover,
Yes.
Remy.
Yes. And then I have one other item I want to bring up. Patrick, it's my understanding that City Council has approved members attending virtually and still being able to vote. Is that correct? For
Correct.
City
They
Council?
passed an ordinance, and it spells out the rules and procedures for doing that, and if that's something you're interested in, staff can prepare a similar resolution for P and Z to adopt as a policy, or consider adopting. Some of you may not want to, so, but we could certainly prepare something if that's
I would
something you're-
like us to take a look at something just because of the difficulty of getting P and Z members, and sometimes people are out of town, but they could still attend virtually and participate, and then we have a quorum.
Yeah, I mean, the voters have spoken and the city council has made their decision, and, but I guess we're an independent committee, so we make our own decision, but I'd be for that, is anything that will increase participation, and bring us together to make good decisions. So, I mean, can we pass that resolution tonight, Pat, or is that something that we should have in black and white before we?
Yeah, we'll
Go
bring
forward.
something. Jason will,
Okay.
And I guess it's more of a personal thing for me, because I'm out of town months, usually in the wintertime, but I'd be happy to participate and fulfill a quorum.
But there's no limitations, Pat, as to, do you have to be in the state of Colorado?
no.
There's not like any type of limitations on the remote participation.
The limitations are, for the city council ordinance, are, it's limited to 2 members per meeting, and it's on a first-come, first-served basis. So if you want to participate remotely and you're the third person to ask, you're out of luck. You're just absent if you can't make it. It limits, I think, to 6, and of course, council meets,
Twice a month,
yeah,
usually.
and even then some, so they meet quite a bit more than you do, and it's limited to 6 meetings per year that you can remotely participate, so you may want to lessen that amount because.
We don't have to have any limitations, right? I mean.
No,
we
you
could just-
could, it's
Yeah.
wide open, and I'm just telling you what the city council arrived at was, and, I think there's, you have to, I think there's some language in there about, you have to be in a location that is, quiet, so, not the local pub or something like that, and, that it's confidential. And, because they even allow participating in executive sessions. Now, you all have the right to do executive sessions. It's been pretty rare that P and Z has ever done executive sessions, but you have that right, and the council allows for remote participation in the executive session. And we have the technology here in the jury room to allow for remote participation in those sessions. So that's one of the, but we can give you kind of a framework with different options, and
Just give us something to look at.
yeah, and you can debate
Decide
it and
down the road, we can decide, but thanks for entertaining that. Any other comments?
So I had one, you had asked about the training session, and I'm not sure how many, probably the 2 new commissioners maybe didn't attend, but I may be mistaken, and I'm not sure if all of the rest of you did,
I
but,
think all 3 of us were there.
yeah. Anyway, Sam Light, who is general counsel of CIRSA, which is the city's insurance carrier, and he's a former city attorney. He goes around the state and does these trainings for new elected officials and new P&Z members on the quasi-judicial process. And it was live streamed. It's the May 12th City Council workshop session or work session. So I would strongly recommend that you log on to that and watch it if you didn't have the opportunity to attend in person. But it's a good training for, the quasi-judicial decisions, and it kind of explains the difference between legislative and quasi-judicial and what that involves. And so it's I think very helpful, especially if you've never been on one of these boards.
Yeah, thank you for looking that up. I forgot to do that ahead of time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would highly recommend it. It's informative. Might keep you out of trouble. So,
But they
yeah,
don't, the attorneys only represent the city council. They wouldn't represent one of us, would they, Pat, if something happened? There was a case?
Well, they represent the city. So if generally, P&Z usually won't generate litigation because for the most part, all you do is recommend. And any final decision that might generate litigation and an appeal, to the court would be an appeal of the city council's decision. Now, if there was a defect in the process by which P&Z, Bruce's brother owns the business that you guys recommended approval, and he didn't recuse himself. And based on, and that recommendation of approval was a 3-2, and he was one of the ones that voted for it. And that, based on that recommendation, council decided to approve it, saying, well, if P&Z supports it, we support it. They might name the P&Z commission as well, but generally they just name the city and/or the city council and then not all stuff is covered by insurance. So some of it, you're stuck with me. But
I would say a lot of the training has to do with ethics. and
Yeah.
Behavior and that sort of thing.
But yeah, for the most part, they represent the city and city employees. If we fire somebody and somebody claims we did it wrong, and we get sued, then the Insurance Defense Council would take over and handle the case. If the police shoot somebody and they claim it was unauthorized shooting, sued, they represent that officer and the city as a whole.
So it would be pretty rare that a case would be brought against one of us or the zoning commission. Yeah.
Real rare. Like I said, unless it was some super conflict of interest that you ignored warnings from staff or something like that. Generally they don't sue individuals, and certainly on the P&Z, you're kind of one step removed anyway. It would be more likely a city council member might get named, but that's even very rare. It's generally just the city of Cortez, but it's important, if you follow the instructions in this May 12th video for the work session, that our process is clean and we do we give due process to the applicants, then it lessens the chance that we'll get sued. And gives us a defense if we do get sued.
So Charlie, be careful on that RFP.
Well, the only other thing I'll bring up is the training session emphasized that we need to make sure that we abide by the Colorado open statute law. And
Meetings and open records, yeah.
Person on the committee,
Yeah.
or that could be a violation.
Yeah, and it's 3 members or a quorum, whichever's less. So 2 of you could get together and discuss something, but not 3 of you. And if 3 of you did it, Cheryl would have to post it 24 hours in advance, and the public would be theoretically invited to come to the meeting. But 2 of you can get together. But what you can't do is 2 of you meet and discuss an item, and then one of you meets with one of the other guys and discusses the same item, and then, so it's basically a serial chain meeting, and that violates the open meetings law. So you just got to be careful. The main recommendation is do your discussions of these quasi-judicial matters in the public meeting, in front of the public. And if it's if you need legal advice or some other confidential issue, we can go into executive session behind closed doors. But if you're anticipating that, I would recommend that you ask me ahead of time, and I'll prepare the appropriate motion and everything for doing the executive session. But generally, P&Z, my experience, doesn't go into executive session very often.
No, I've never had to do that. And
Yeah.
but in relation to that, if the school board would get out, in rural Colorado, where I was superintendent, get done at, midnight sometimes, those farmers would go out, stand on the corner and talk, and
Yeah, exactly.
be three of them, and somebody drive by, oh, they're talking,
Yeah, they take a picture of you and
I told them, you guys can't do that anymore, so I'd have to make sure they left. It was
meet
like,
for
oh.
coffee and, it,
Yeah.
now that, and he distinguishes between legislative and, so if you're like talking about the comprehensive plan, all five of you can go to coffee and discuss it and discuss it with your neighbors ahead of time, and, because that's legislation, it's not, the quasi judicial applies to a single property or individual. So you're essentially applying the rules and ordinances that have been adopted to a particular piece of property. And, it invokes, you can't deny somebody of life, liberty, or property, or the pursuit of happiness without due process. And the due process is that you do it in front of the public, and you don't discuss it ahead of time, and you don't text each other while you're sitting up there on the dais and talking back and forth, like, well, how are you gonna vote? And what do you think of his comment and that stuff? You can't do that. You gotta actually just turn the mic on and talk about it. And,
Okay, thanks. Any other comments before okay, meeting adjourned. We only have a motion.
Gonna catch it before you
Yeah, I know.